Welcome, everybody, to Train Tuesday. I hope you guys are doing all right out there. We're in the middle of, pretty much middle of spring. So hopefully you guys are doing all right out there. Let's see who's out and about and here for Train Tuesday. I see Ted. I see Frederick, Andrew, Alfred. Casey says, hey, Jim. Hey, back to you. I see Matt. Joseph. Hello, Joseph. Nice to see you again. Got Steve. And let's see who else we got coming in. We got Brian. We got Steve. Mystic Southern Railway. I love the name of that sound of that railroad. We got Sean. We got Kalen. Let's see. Who else do I have here? We got Brady, Scott, Jason. All right. We'll let some more guys get in here. Got a great show for you today. Got a special guest a little bit later. We're going to have Tony Cook on board. He has got some really cool, interesting stuff to show us today. And it has to do with what we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about the Roundhouse offerings. We're also going to be talking about some N-scale offerings. Now, don't forget, Friday is the last day to get all your pre-orders in. So anything that we talk about today and stuff that we've talked about in the past, of course, don't forget those Dash 9s. Those Dash 9s are just mint. You're going to want at least one of those. So go ahead and order one of those while you're thinking of it. So let's see who else is coming on board. I see Glenn. I see Paul. I thought I saw somebody from the UK. I missed it. I see Matthew from Australia. I bet you he's going to get one of those Dash 9s. Let's see. We got Jim. We got Enrique, Quinn, Alfred. All right. And Jim says he's getting a CN-9 that was shown last Friday. So, yeah, those are cool. Speaking of CN, too, there's some news for you guys that haven't heard. Kansas City Southern and CN. Wow. Or not CN, sorry, CP. That's some big news, especially around here because we both have a little bit of CP, a lot of CN, and a little bit of KCS, but we'll see what's going on. I don't know if it's a 100% done deal, but sure sounds like it. So let's see. We get everybody on board, everybody in. All right, great. So like I said, we were talking about Roundhouse and N-scale today. And in a conversation I was having with Tony one day, he saw some of the Roundhouse stuff and he says, oh, Jim, you know what? I got some great stuff about these covered hoppers. And I said, I'll tell you what, you find your information, your pictures and all that, and let's schedule you to come on board. And I know you guys are going to like this because it's really cool when you see all the neat stuff that we offer in HO and N scale. It's really neat to see when you have an industry that your model railroad needs that particular car for, but it's even cooler when you find out what is in those cars. What do they really do? What raw material are they carrying to make things that we don't think about? So yeah, we're going to have Tony on here. Let me see if I can grab Tony. And here we go.
Hey,
Tony, how's it going?
It's going well. Spring is here, sort of, kind of. We've had a few nice days that, open the house up in the fresh air, and then we get some cold, rainy days, but I got the grass seed put out and I'm hopeful, so it's looking good.
Yeah, no, for me, it's rail fan season's coming right around the corner because I'm a wimp now. I'm not like these young guys that go out there at minus 22 in the plains and snap pictures of the different stuff. But yeah, I'm about 2 weeks away from one of my favorite holidays. At the risk of sounding too bad, I call it Good Friday, Great Rail Fanning. Do a lot of rail fanning at the BNSF all the way to Galesburg. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I just see Jim Frisk is in Vermont, and they're warmer than Illinois, 68. He's not too far from my other home. So, Lucky you, Jim. Enjoy it. So, Tony, you and I were talking, and I wanted to bring up these Roundhouse offerings that we got and, seeing what we can say about them. I mean, I know you have got a bunch of information on a lot of the older Roundhouse stuff. And while I'm letting you start talk, I'm going to go ahead and bring that screen up so everybody can see what we're talking about.
Have we got that? Is that at my end?
No, I'm going to grab these Roundhouse 40-foot gondolas and show everybody. Now,
Now this is
We have offered these before.
model die casting tooling originally. This is the 40-foot gondola, I think, that you guys are running again. Goes back to the early
That's
60s.
correct.
Yeah. When it came out, it was one of the first. I think Roundhouse's first plastic car is that little 30-foot flat car, which I have seen has been run in some recent years, but that was the first injection molded plastic freight car release. Because like Atherton did, there was wood and metal cars ahead of plastic and, like pre-mid 50s. So we got a new run of Roundhouse 40-foot gondolas we're going to talk about. And then we've got the center flows after that. I thought was a neat group. The one thing that always hits me on these is there's always some road name or something that I wonder, where did they come up with that? Because like the BN, the Southern Pacific, are all pretty typical. But that Texas and Northern, I thought was kind of one of the standouts of this group. I liked it. And that Southern had a very older look to it. And I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah, a little bit of little bit of difference. We ran these not too long ago. In fact, I'll show some pictures after we get done looking at these. But these have been pretty popular. Now, the ones that we did this time, they're pretty much, era-wise, they would fit into the 70s, some of them even later. But most of them are going to be in the 50s and 60s. And yeah, like you were saying, the Southern Pacific has got the older, 1950s look, whereas the Southern also has the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got something like the Burlington Northern, which is in the Cascade Green. And, some guys out there might say, Burlington Northern wouldn't have taken these old, 40-foot gondolas and painted them Cascade Green. But I think you and I know that there's at least one picture of an old wood-sided caboose they painted Cascade Green.
There's always something like that. And things when you think you've seen it all. I had this just in the last week. 40-foot single dome tank car showed up on a Facebook page, orange with the big eyeball Illinois Central Gulf. And I thought I'd seen every painted ICG freight car. And it's like, where did that come from? And I asked my ICG expert, Dan Colbert, and he said, yes, I know of 3. And he showed me the pictures of the other 2. And so, again, it's anytime you think, oh, there's not a prototype for that, don't be so sure. Because, it is surprising some of the things that get done. But, yeah, the Texas and Northern hit me like in that modernized group of box cars. Now the name's escaping me. The one that serves the Ethan Allen Furniture Company.
Oh, yeah, the Stafford line. Yep.
I thought that was such a neat car. And of all things, I was researching something else. And I was going through like an old mainline modeler, prototype modeler, and they had a whole article on building a switching model railroad based on that little road, and talked about its fleet of 40-foot box cars, how it served the furniture factory and the few switchers they had. And it's like, wow, that is so cool. Those kind of things, it's always fun to learn something, as you're seeing some of these things. Like Texas and Northern, I've not done any, I don't know anything about it. And that's surprising. It says 1950s. So I'm sure there's guys out there that know it forward and back, but that one to me is, I got to find out more about them. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like you were saying, and it remind me later, we need to talk about that track plan, because that was literally only about an hour or two from where I grew up. And really talk about a short line. It was a segment of the old Boston and Maine that went in northern New Hampshire and then just kind of barely crossed over into Vermont for that furniture factory. And they just had 44-tonner center cab switchers. And it was really neat. But, same with the Texas and Northern. There's going to be somebody out there that either models it or has a connection to it. And this is one that we, as far as I can remember, we have not offered this one in the past. We've offered some of the other ones. We've just offered these in new road numbers, so you can keep completing your collection or just add new roads to your collection.
And these cars are so spectacular for making loads, setting up scenes, whether it's work trains or, hauling scrap, that these things just beg to do some modeling work with them, to either bang them up and weather them, or again, try to, conjure up a load that fits in them, whether it's printed or, resin cast, or my assistant editor was making bales out of aluminum foil, taking, making little, and they look great. And I said, what do you make them out of? He said, it's just a Reynolds wrap. And it's like, wow. I mean, so There's so many things for this kind of stuff that you can create a real eye-catching car for a consist.
And the other thing too, for the guys that are modeling the 80s, even into the 90s, I mean, if you want something in your yard, if you want something that looks like a maintenance away piece, this is perfect for that. Little, like you said earlier, weather them up, bang them up a little bit. And then definitely with a little bit of work, you can make these a maintenance away type car. Or, there's plenty of instances I know back east where some old Boston and Maine or Maine Central yards have something similar to this, in the back lower 40 of the yard with a tree growing up through it. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with these things that are just, spot on for these cars. They're perfect for that. I've got some pictures. Now, before I bring these down, just to let everybody know out there, we're offering these in the roads that you see here. They're going to have metal wheel sets. They're miles ahead of what we used to have under the Roundhouse line. We've upgraded these quite a bit. And of course, the other thing is the paint on these has gotten so much better than they were in the old days. But not only with the metal wheel sets, but we're offering them in the roads that you see here in 3 different road numbers. So whether you want to run them in a complete train for your layout, maybe a transition era layout or into the 60s and 70s, or if you like the idea of putting one into your yard as an older piece or the maintenance away piece, you definitely got some options here. Now, to give you an idea of what I've got pictures of the last run, I think it is. Let me bring those up real quick. And some of these actually that I'm going to show you, there's still limited amounts in stock. So they generally sell quite quickly. But in this case, the 2 that I'm going to show you, we actually still have a few in stock. All right. So this is from the last release. This is the Penn Central. We released this one. We announced it in 2019. They came in stock probably right around Christmas. And the Penn Central stuff is very popular. A lot of guys really like that Penn Central, and myself included. It's a pretty cool line.
It's one of those roads I feel like it was something I didn't pay attention to as a kid, maybe because it was new. But
Right.
now, yeah, Penn Central, BN, some of those now really catch me that I might have dismissed or before. And in fact, when you talked a few weeks ago on the center flows, that I ended up going out that next day and buying that green Penn Central and was asking Janik about the red and white logo and things on it. So yeah, it's interesting how some of those that it's like, well, I never used to pay attention to that. And it's like, yeah, now I'd consider Penn Central pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I remember, being young in the Model Railroad Club. Penn Central was one of those, nobody wanted to model that because that was a different chapter in railroad history. But nowadays, it's got a firm following, just like Conrail. Here's the other one that we've got. It's a Maine Central. Maine Central always had unique stuff, and this would certainly fit. And with some kit bashing too, you could do some really cool work with one of these. Now these are limited because, like I said, we announced these in 2019. They were in stock late 2020, and a lot of them are already sold out. Now, when I say that, that means our distribution center. Your dealer may still have these in stock, and if this is something that you're looking for a kit bash project, maintenance away project, something like that, go ahead and grab one of these while you can, because once they're gone, they're gone. And these ones that we've talked about today, they won't be in stock until next year at this time. So pretty cool stuff.
And as you say, the paint and decoration on these, I think in the review I did on these center flows that came out, it still amazes me how good some of these look, that you do almost that stop of, yeah, that's that old blue box tooling, but it's like, wow, boy, painted and decorated so well, it really almost looks like it's a different model. And
it really does.
It's a nice.
I've got a few. It really does, and I've got a few here. I've got them here on my desk. These guys are selling out quick. You mentioned the Penn Central one. I've got the Penn Central one right here, and these are so much further ahead than what I had as a kid. And you mentioned the blue box, And the blue box kits, yeah, they were cool, but you still had to upgrade the couplers to, you know, something that was not a horn hook. You had to upgrade by putting some metal wheel sets on them if you wanted to, and everything else. So at the end of the day, they probably were cheaper back then, but you had to do some work on them. Whereas these, you just take them out of the box, and like you said, the printing and painting on these is just phenomenal.
Well, they've even improved over the years. I was looking at, I noticed those are new trucks. The roller bearing trucks on this release are different from the roller bearing trucks that were on previous ready to roll versions. And I actually like the design of this current one. You know, I think they're probably interchangeable, or, you know, I don't know which one is more maybe prototypically accurate. But as I was looking at these, that was one of the things that I noticed, is that the truck side frames are different tooling than what they were before. But it's, you know, as I say, I got hooked on this from you doing that video on it. I thought, let me go out and see if I can find a couple of these. And I got this, and I bought the Rock Island one at Hobby Shops in Kansas City a couple weeks ago. I think I got one of these at Show Me Lines down in Grandview, and the other at Midwest Model Railroad in Independence. And really liked them. I did a little review that'll be in Model Railroad News, and it's up on modelrailroadnews.com that you can see some pictures and info on those as well. So they're, you know, they're, as I said, they're good running cars. As you've said, it's a good, again, for, you know, operating and entry level and that kind of thing. It's a good, respectable car.
It really is. And I mean, you know, what I'll do is I'll share some other pictures I've got here of those. Let's go ahead and go to the one that we're both talking about, the Penn Central. And I mean, just take a look at this for a second. Now, you know, Tony, you and I are about the same age. We remember building these as younger guys. And do you remember this much printing and warning labels and things of that nature on your cars back then?
No, not at all. In fact, I would go through Dad's scraps of like Walthers and Harold King and microscale sheets to steal. Of course, I had no idea if it was accurate. Then I just wanted that kind of data. Yeah, I was looking for the right color, because again, an old one might have just had the PC, the number, and a little bit of the data under it. But all that other stuff, yeah, I would swipe that off decal sheets to put ACI labels and things like that on cars. And now, you know, it's all there. I mean, you see the Circle ACF down on the sill for American Car and Foundry, the 5250 cubic foot, the multicolor ACI label. I mean, they're neat little cars. This is, and the model, the tooling actually goes back to about the time when the cars were new. The cars are like mid 60s from ACF, and the model's 1968. It came out about the time Athearn did like the high cubes and the big flat cars and the bay window and wide vision original cabooses. This was part of a real boom period for Athearn in the late 60s with respect to rolling stock. And that's when this and then the Pullman Standard ribside 3-bay covered hopper both came out about the same time. So it's an absolute classic car. And you've got the round hatches on the top, or the trough hatches. And I saw the release said that there were both, I think in both runs, the ones I bought were both trough hatches. And as I said in the review, and this is something that I think I know what I'm talking about, but I think if it has the round hatches on top, and then you notice the gates are not the gates, but kind of the nozzle thing at the bottom of the bays. Right. I think those go together for like pellet service, that you'd pour like the little round pellets in, then you hook basically a hose up to that nozzle. I think that's a cap that comes off at the bottom of that bay, and then pump the stuff out of them. Because that was, as a kid, I always thought these were just grain.
Right.
You know, whether it was the Pullman Standard or this car, as a little kid, it's like it carries bread. It's just got grain in it. And it wasn't till later I, you know, heard and realized all this stuff. Oh no, it carries a lot of different, you know, like plastic pellets and stuff of that nature. So you think of them much more than just, you know, of course they are unit grain train type cars, but there's a lot of industries they can service.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the plastic pellets that, you know, can be used for the manufacturing just about anything, including these cars, ironically enough. You're actually, you're right. Not too far from myself here, we have a plastic plant, and they get these cars quite often, and they put those in. So yeah, like you, when I was younger, I just assumed these were for grain. And then as I got older, doing some more research on it, I was like, oh, okay, plastic pellets and things of that nature. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. And one of the things that I hear a lot from folks is, these are still nice and all, but why don't I just get a Genesis? Well, I mean, we all have budgets, right? We all have budgets, and maybe you're more of an operator. We're getting a lot of guys that are younger guys that are into operations, and they need something that holds the place of an operating car. And these are great. They look great. They don't have a lot of fine detail that's easily broken, say like on a Genesis car. Or if you're somebody that likes to do your own custom painting, custom detailing, and things of that nature, I've seen guys take these Roundhouse cars and do some amazing work on them, just so they can model their one-off freight cars. So definitely, there's a place for these on our layouts, whatever it be, whether you're doing operations with some folks, or if you want to use it for that next project that you're working on.
Absolutely. I mentioned in the review too, one of the things I remember as a kid, my dad would take these and that 3-bay version, which it probably was not a 5250. And again, this is that 1970s, prototype rivet counting of it's a center flow, but the 3-bay ones, maybe were more common, or he wanted it for Rio Grande or Illinois Central Gulf. And he would take the bays at the bottom, cut and discard one of them, and then reposition the other 3 to come up with a 3-bay center flow. And I remember him painting those like Action Orange, Rio Grande and such. And it seemed like such an amazing, like, wow, it looks like a completely different car because now it's a 3-bay. So yeah, there's a lot that you can still do with these kind of cars. And this, I'm glad you brought this one up because it's got I never say it right. I'm going to say yellow reflective panels. As
okay.
Yeah, that's so I don't stumble over. Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So anyway, it has yellow reflective panels, which is the FRA thing of the last, 10, 15 years on the side of cars. And when you see these, you think, well, but this is like a late 60s prototype. And they are still around to an extent. You will see some that are ACF cars. But as I also mentioned in the review, as ACF and Pullman Standard, as those companies went away, the designs did not. There's brand new center flows that at a glance look just like this car. And like you've got the CP in this is in this current run. And then the coming production that's announced for March delivery next year has a Union Pacific, also with the reflective panels. And again, whether it's Trinity or some of the other companies, again, it's a good, inexpensive stand-in car for, a contemporary version of it, that some of those, they picked up the designs and things from like Pullman Standard or ACF as they took them over or went out of business. And so they are different if you really look at them, of course, but in general, a Trinity center flow and an ACF center flow passing you by at 50 miles an hour are in the neighborhood of each other. And that's what I see these cars as, or these models.
Yeah, it's one of those things where in both runs, this run here, like you're saying, the anti-collision reflective patch, as I call it, is representative, like you said, to today. And then we showed you the Penn Central one. Somebody said, "Hey, ACI label, that screams 1970s." Yes, it does. And then we also offer them in the 80s/90s. This one here, I remember seeing these all over the place in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, these were just super common.
I still see some of those from time to time they're usually in pretty rough shape. But those blue, I always call them like little arrows or something, whatever that design was, that you still see cars of that nature. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we had a really nice Saturday, and my assistant editor and I were out shooting pictures at Union Station in Kansas City. And we caught a couple, again, I don't know which prototypes they were, but we shot some pictures of these that were basically covered in rust, which again is a great, to buy this model, take it home, and then basically sprinkle it with red freckles so it has that rusted look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, this gives everybody an idea that hasn't seen these maybe what we've done in the past. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you what we're releasing for this round, and you have till Friday to order these. So make sure to get to your dealer, and if there's any of these ACFs that you really like, go ahead and pre-order with him. So let me go ahead and bring that up for us real quick.
This next group, and it has a nice group. I think there's 3 of the leaser fleet ones, and then the others are railroads, the Santa Fe, Seaboard, UP, and Western Pacific. But the leasers always have some neat eye-catching schemes to them. The ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, of course, is very familiar to you and I, Jim, because that's here in the Midwest. The Kodak, and I do remember seeing those. In fact, I thought I had a slide of one of the Kodak cars. I remember seeing them for real, and I remember Dad snapping a picture, but I went looking for that when you announced this and wasn't able to find it, but I think I have a picture of that someplace. The Santa Fe's in that mineral red with the big Cooper Santa Fe billboard. Wow. I mean, streaks of those cars. That's a classic look there. Yellow family lines, which would be that 1970s Seaboard L&N getting together look as they went into the 80s, become Seaboard System. We've got the Union Pacific, I think, below the Kodak is the newest.
We're looking at the 1970s with the Kodak, and then we've got 2 more that I know you wanted to talk about. We've got the plexiglass one, which is kind of interesting. I mean, check out the logo here. You've got the Pioneer logo.
There's a collection of logos there. You see the Roundhouse, if I'm saying that right, which people will remember from one of the Athearn boxcars of the 60s had that. It says plexiglass on it. I've got one from a prior run. It says optical quality molding resin for Laserdisc application. It says partners in quality, which would be plexiglass, Roundhouse, and Pioneer. And Pioneer is the company that you might have put a car stereo in your Pontiac at one time. It is that Pioneer. And what it was referencing was Laserdisc, which was, when I saw this, I was so neat they're doing that again. And those were real cars that were in that lease pool. And Laserdisc was one of the first home video systems that it was developed by Philips of Europe and MCA Universal. And it's basically the grandfather of DVDs. And it was one of the first ways you could get movies. And I have a couple of the old early original of what they were. These came out in the late 1970s. And how about that name, Disco Vision? You can't beat that. Obviously, the music format, they must have coined the name a little before the music took hold in the 70s, because I don't know if you'd go Disco Vision yet. But imagine being 12, 13 years old, and suddenly you have these movies to watch on TV back at a time when you had the 3 networks and nothing else, and nobody had a video recorder. These sold for about $15, $20 a piece, and you got the movie in spectacular quality for its day on what was a record size disc. 30 minutes per side, so you were constantly flipping to get through Smokey and the Bandit. Took 4 sides to get through the whole show. And the plexiglass that was carried in the center flows, this is almost like, I was told at the time this was like football helmet material. It's basically the same as like a CD or a DVD. So the little pellets were brought in, melted down, and then pressed as the coating to go on top of the laminated aluminum with the material for the movies. So you could have a Laserdisc pressing plant on your model railroad with these center flows bringing in the plastic pellets. So you could be making your own movies in HO. How cool is that?
I mean, that's great. And I mean, you've got one of my favorites there, Smokey and the Bandit, which I think was the first home movie I got to see, not on Laserdisc, but something called VHS. I don't know if everybody remembers that or not. But it's, like we were saying earlier, it's interesting when you get into model railroading, think back to when you were younger, or maybe you're just getting into it now, and you kind of choose what cars you want because they're cool looking, or they got cool paint schemes, or things of that nature. And as you start building a layout or modeling with a club, you tend to pick up cars based on what you're modeling for industries. And that's a great story about how, something that maybe a lot of us didn't think about is, those laser discs had to be made with plastic pellets. And here we are. We've got Kodak too.
And that one's chemicals, plastics, and fibers is what's next to that Kodak logo. And man, if you're a rail fan, with any kind of years behind you, you've gone through boxes of Kodachrome or Ektachrome
Oh,
and
yeah.
remember shooting slide films. So having a Kodak hopper on your layout's a must.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's funny. I'm reading some of the comments, and somebody's sarcastically said, "Grandpa, what's a Kodak?" And yeah, it's hard to believe, but a lot of us have been doing digital for at least 10 or 15 years or more.
Yeah.
And man, it's been a long time since we had Kodachrome slides. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're modeling the 70s into the 80s, these cars just scream that. That's perfect for this type of thing.
That is awesome. Yeah. No, I will say at times when I check my camera for the SD card, I'll say, "Oh, good, I brought film that I didn't
Yeah,
leave the SD card out of my camera." Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard habit to break. And then, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, we've got the 2006 Plus. You've got the former Chicago Northwestern Union Pacific. I remember seeing these up in Rochelle, Illinois. And you've also got, going back to the 70s, we've got the Western Pacific. So there's a little bit of everything in this release, whether you're modeling the 70s all the way up into the early 2000s, there's something for you. And like you said, these are still pretty common on the rails. You still see them. They're going to be in different degrees of condition, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But for the most part, these are seen just about everywhere.
And you still do, as I said, we'll be spotting cars, whether they're kind of the Pullman standard covered hoppers or this style center flow. I will see from time to time ones with the old like PS 4750 or this ACF logo on. It's like, there's a, and again, they mix in with the Trinities and the other cars you see at times. So, but there's some of these veterans are still out there running. And again, they're a close match. So like that Building America UP, probably would not necessarily be an ACF, but the model is in the neighborhood of what that prototype would be. And I think as I've looked at some of these, the like cubic foot capacity and things usually mimics what the prototype is instead of the 5250 the car is, which is in a way is a good thing. I think I saw that kind of looking through them. So the data and everything does, correspond to the correct prototype, and is just placed on a model that's very similar to it. So they are interesting cars.
They really are. And I mean, I've said it before, and I think many of the guys here have heard it. You might be part of a modular club, and let's admit, I mean, I've lost some really good models just setting up at a show with a modular club. Things happen. You get distracted, and suddenly that Genesis car goes rolling off the end of the module and gets rekitted. And so, with these, they're a little bit more rugged, and they're great for the younger guys. And, for the guys out there that are watching, if you've got kids or grandkids that, want to see your layout room or want to go to the show and see these are perfect for them too, because, they are heavier plastic. They're just really good all around operating car. And especially if you want to make a group of these, a whole consist of whether it be grain cars or laser disc cars or anything of that nature, you very easily can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading some of the comments, and man, we're going down memory lane with not just us, but a lot of guys. I can't remember who said it. Oh, Bill. I'm going to put his comment up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can I. Remember the cube?
Oh yeah.
I don't mean the board cube. I don't mean that.
No,
I mean the actual.
Cube.
Yeah, I think I still have some of those around here somewhere.
It was like Sylvania or GE flash cubes that would stick in the top and rotate around to give you like floors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Wow. So a lot of those things that we used to use, some of the raw material came in these cars. And if you want to tell that story on your layout, this is the perfect one. And yeah, you'd have to buy. They came in packs of, I don't know how many, but they were 4 or 5 in a pack. And you stuck them in, and as soon as it flashed, it would turn and it would go to the next one. And man, you try to explain that to somebody that's under 20 and you've lost them.
You don't think about it. Some of those things kind of slip away, and it is wow, yeah, I remember that. But again, to explain to somebody else, it's like, now what? You did what? It's like, yeah, the thing that flashes on your camera, you used to have to carry those around and stick them in the top of a little camera. It's like,
Yep.
oh, wow. Yeah.
Now, I think we were talking earlier. Not only did you have some info on these particular cars, but you said you had been working on something on these the current release that are out there now, and something about these cars too, right, Tony?
Right. I'm doing a whole group of center flow and covered hoppers in the coming summer edition of Model Railroad News that'll bring in a number of different prototypes, number of different companies, and even I think I got a couple of different scales. And these center flows are included in that. And I've got some information on those. And that next run that's, this run we're talking about here will be included in the Penn Central and the Rock Island are reviewed. So look forward to that. I think I have that lined up for June or July, which seems like a long time away, but it's only, we're almost to April. So our May edition of Model Railroad News will be out in just a couple of weeks, which is hard to believe. So, but not that far around the corner. And again, in that article on the center flows and covered hoppers, I'll go into some of that, the jobs they did, whether it's pellets or other things to kind of give a little more to the story of those cars and kind of the dates when they get bigger and things like that. So
sure,
it's a neat, and it's one of those things we didn't have when you think about. It seemed like in the hobby, you always have a lot of, we have this car, you got a box car, we have a flat car, but that's maybe the only one. And a lot of times it was an Athearn car. Yes, there's this 50-foot whatever. And these hoppers were the same way. You had Athearn brought out that 4750, I believe it is, unless it's 4740, the Pullman standard. Somebody will correct me here. And then this 5250, these both come out in the late 60s. There are clones of them and copies made by other places. And one of my favorites is Tyco, who, whenever they must have sent this over to Hong Kong and said, here, copy this Athearn car for us, they mixed the top and gave it half trough and half round, I assume, because as they put the car together to copy it, no one knew. It's like, well, we'll use a little of both. And it's like, I don't think you really prototypically would use a little of both, but you're going to paint it. Of course, you're going to paint it cornflakes anyway, so we'll let it go. But there were copies of that car, but again, it's the same car that we didn't really have until you get more into the 80s. Now, whether it's tank cars, center flows like this, like, well, what do you want? Do you want a 5,800 cubic foot pellet car that's, this or that there's so many different ones, but, some of these mainstays like this one are still classics. Yet now there's so many. Yet at one time, that was it. This center flow is the only one on the market for years, more or less.
Exactly. Yeah, now I didn't want to leave my N-scale guys out. I know we've got some N-scale guys in the audience, and I've got some cool stuff to show you guys too. We were talking about different types of cars and stuff, and I know, Tony, you remember these. Remember the solid cold cars from back in the day? Yeah. Now, that brings back some memories, and we are bringing these back in N scale. We've done them in HO. We've got them in Genesis this month in HO. So we've also got them in N scale. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see what we're talking about.
And I think these N scale, don't they have? We've got options for. Is it sound?
Yes, they do have sound.
Wow.
So these are really cool.
If you remember these trains, and I'm sure you do, as they roll by, you always had that hum of the air conditioning unit. I can remember seeing these trains like on the Santa Fe through like Chillicothe, Illinois. They'd come rolling in, so they'd slow down, they'd do the crew change, and it'd be a whole streak of mechanical reefers. And it's just one that it was interesting that every car had that buzzing sound of the refrigerator running. So they were awesome cars to see.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, how many times have you been in a yard? Like I'll be in Galesburg, and, you'll hear the typical yard squealing of the rails, the prime movers, notching up, things of that nature. But you'll see these things under an overpass or something. You'll hear the compressor kick in, and all of those sounds that you would hear. These are available. You can get these with or without sound. It depends. And as you can see, Tony, we've got a little bit from every different era. We're starting in the early days of BN. This first one right here, 1973. Certainly the early days of BN, that really cool stylized logo that they came up with. and we're offering it in 2 different road numbers. And again, you can get it with sound or you can get it without sound. The next one, and don't worry, Frisco guys, hold on to your seats. I'm not going to hurt you guys too bad. This one here is 1980 plus, because what happened to the Frisco? Well, if you're a Frisco fan, you're probably not too happy about it. But of course, Burlington Northern ended up buying Frisco. We've got a Prime for Grime version. We're just doing this one number. And as you can see, everything is kind of gritty and dirty, but you can see the reporting marks nice and clean, just like you'd see on the prototype. That represents a nice representation of 1980 plus. And then we go forward into the 80s and into the 90s. We have the more common Cascade Green. Remember when they went from that yellow paint scheme, Tony, and they brought back the Western Fruit Express logo, but they painted them Cascade Green. I remember seeing these.
Oh yeah, those were very common for a long time, and all those are neat. All the refrigerator things, whether it's like PFE or American Refrigerator, or like this was Great Northern was the originator of Western Fruit Express. These are always neat things for like unit trains or service, because they usually always ran in groups, it seemed like, or in blocks. And yeah, these really cover. When that was first announced at Frisco, really threw me because I didn't look closely at it, and I thought it was patched for BNSF. And I thought, wow, that's an amazing stretch to think Frisco from 1980 was still, not that it couldn't happen, still around in the mid 90s to be patched. Yeah. And then I look at it again, I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, my first take on was, what, I got to see a picture of that car, because I don't know. Although I do see some of those light, kind of cream colored Frisco cars. I still see some of those come and go at Murray Yard in the north part of Kansas City. And they're not refrigerators, but it's similar to a car you guys announced a month or 2 ago. And it's kind of a light cream white color with Frisco. And I'm amazed those cars are still around, because it's like, holy smokes.
It's amazing. You know. Yeah, it's just amazing what you see rail fanning. I remember years, not too long ago, actually, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, I was in Northern Illinois doing some rail fanning, and there's a Pullman Standard covered hopper in Rock Island blue, complete with all of the Rock Island, the Rock Island R, all of that. And it was literally one of those things where, even though I couldn't get a very good picture of it, I still took a picture of it, because that's the rail fan equivalent to seeing a Sasquatch. Nobody would have believed me unless they had taken that picture.
Yeah, look at that. Wow. And these are what we've got. These have cushion extended couplers. They're on roller bearing trucks, obviously with metal wheel sets. And then the sound, and so it's DCC. Help those of us out here that are carrying around the little power pack and running our circle of track. So it is DCC, and the DCC lets you kick on the sound for the refrigerator while it's running, right? So exactly. Unlike a locomotive where you got lights and direction and all that, your sound equipped version, your decoder, I assume you can give the car a number or name and then fire up and turn off the sound.
Yeah, you can. Basically, it will go through very similar. The guys over at Soundtracks did a lot of work on this. They all of those noises associated to one of these kicking in, compressor sounds, kicking off, things of that nature. All of that's going to be replicated. And yeah, once you've got it programmed in on your layout, you can have it sitting in a yard as long as the layout is running. It can be sitting there doing nothing, and then just like in real life, it's going to spark right up and go. Now, the cool thing is they don't draw much. Thanks to the DCC, they don't really draw much current at all. So they're perfect for, especially if you're in like a modular club and you want to get somebody's attention, especially in N scale. Most people are still kind of getting used to N scale having sound, but to have the refrigerator cars have sound, that's really cool in N scale. And if you've got a yard of these in there and they're randomly going off and firing up, it's going to get people's attention.
That is very cool. Yeah, that adds a lot of kind of that realism or animation you don't think about, whether it's lighting or sound. It's not moving or doing anything, but there's a realism factor, as you say. If you had those sitting there in a yard and the compressors are kicking on and off. And I see there's the legit Frisco for the folks that want to unpatch. Yeah,
that's what I said. I didn't want to get my Frisco fans out there upset, because We did the Prime for Grime one, and we get a lot of requests for the 90s. Well, guys that are doing the 90s after the BNSF merger, here you go. The BNSF, similar paint scheme as the Burlington Northern, but in a different color, of course. And then, hey, let's go back to that disco era that you were talking about earlier. 1974, we've got the original Fruit Growers Express, the solid cold.
Yeah.
Man,
Boy,
does that scream
everywhere? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that definitely screams that era. It's like you wait, maybe John Travolta will jump out of that car. I don't know. And then,
and these are also,
more.
We were talking in scale here, but correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't all these are also coming in HO? So if you're an HO guy,
yes.
that's cool. This release is both. So basically, road names, road numbers, features, your choice, HO or in this month's releases. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the great thing with these. Not always, but most of the time, when we offer something in N scale, you'll definitely have them in HO as well, and that's right. So if you guys that are in HO are like, oh man, I wish I could get that Frisco right there, 1972. That's exactly where I model. It's okay. We're offering them in the Genesis line, and they too, they are offered with and without sound. So definitely talk to your dealer before Friday if you want to get some refrigerator action on the layout. These are really cool, but the guys' development, they didn't stop at these either. That's a really good selection already. But let me bring down some more. So we were talking about weathering and stuff earlier. Here's the Santa Fe leasing. You remember these? These were the old solid cold cars.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, when I saw these, it's like, wow, yeah. I probably saw them and didn't recognize they were patched and changed. But
probably that was the case because I know in the early 2000s, these were all over Galesburg. I remember seeing these in Galesburg Yard. I remember seeing them on the different parts of Illinois. And at first, when I saw them, I'm like, wow, those are still around? Because those were around when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. They were heavily weathered, like you see here. But yeah, what you and I didn't know is they were part of Santa Fe leasing.
Wow.
And they survived into the 90s. So for all the guys out there that have been asking for something from the 90s, these are perfect for you. And they're prime for grime, so you can add your own. I've seen some very unique graffiti on these, and if you're modeling the 1990s, that's certainly going to have some graffiti on it.
I like the look of the prime for grime cars as much, and this is from a collector standpoint. Of course, I like the pretty perfect shiny new cars, but then these prime for grimes I will end up buying, and I'm not going to do anything to them. I'm not going to add to it. Yeah, they may be prime for grime, but they're getting nothing from me other than out of the box admired, back in the box. But I still think they're very neat. It's a neat concept. They look neat. I like the flat finish and everything about them. But they are it's a fun thing to collect as well.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, again, these were really common. Now, so far with these refrigerator cars in M scale, and of course we do have them in HO for the Genesis line. So we've got the 70s, we've got the 80s, we've got the 90s. We didn't stop there. We figured, hey, we've done those eras. Let's go all the way to what you and I would probably consider modern. Now we're into the 2000s. And these, in fact, I saw these yesterday. I saw these in Georgia on CSX's line. I was watching Virtual Railfan after work, and a whole line of these went through. Now, they weren't as clean as they are here because these are 2002 plus. They had some of that graffiti we talked about on them. But if you're doing something a little bit more modern than what we talked about, we're offering the UP versions as well.
Now, is the roof, I can't remember. I think I've seen the HO ones. In fact, I have a couple of the HO ones from prior runs. And it seems like you did a version where the roof section is cut out, which is what they did, and put either new air conditioning or air conditioning was taken out, and they were simply like an insulated, they were basically an RBL. They were no longer mechanical, and that's just an empty spot or something. And I'm not sure, is the in scale the same way? Are there different?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I've actually got. I've got some pictures from the last run of these, and I've got two examples I'll share here.
Because I think those you see a lot still, that where they were a
We do.
mechanical reefer and they basically, I think they're gutted. There's no, but they still serve as an insulated boxcar. I think if I vaguely know what I'm talking about there.
Let me show you first the Burlington Northern example, and this is very similar to what we're offering this run. So if you missed these, you'll want to talk to your dealer. But yeah, here's the N scale BN version from the mid 80s, and the Cascade green, like you said. But if you look at the roof is all solid. It's all covering up the whole top. Now, when I go to the modern or more modern BNSF, when we bring that picture up, you'll see a difference. You'll see that cutout on the top and on the sides, like you were talking about, and we've replicated that on both of those cars, and we're doing these similar cars again in this run, just different road numbers. So if you were able to buy those last time and you want to, extend your fleet, you can without repeating road numbers.
And
so
that
very cool.
The earlier version, I think, has a little separate exhaust stack on it too, doesn't it? In that cutout area, it has a little extra added detail, and then you got the tanks underneath for the fuel thing, the big square that's hanging beneath the BNSF there, and that seems to have been left off a lot of mechanical reefers over the years. They'll put just a regular underframe, and that was always one of the good things on the Athearn cars is they had those square tanks underneath them, because again, if not, that air conditioner is not going to run too long because it's got no fuel. So
right, exactly.
You got to have the fuel tank underneath. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, these are available, like we were saying earlier. They're available with or without sound. It's a Soundtrax sound decoder. It is recorded from an actual gen set. So the guys at Soundtrax, I don't know if you've ever seen, Tony, what they do, but it's pretty amazing. They go out there with all kinds of microphone equipment, and they record all kinds of different angles and sounds, and whether the unit's under load or not. In this case, though, they've got the random cycles that you'd hear from a gen set go on and off. And like I said, it's just random. And it doesn't use a lot of track power. And if you want, we all know that not everybody has the same listening style. These, as well as the HS scale versions, they have a small volume control on the bottom of the car. It's just a manual thing. You can just turn that down. So if you're making too much noise and your roommates or your significant other thinks it's too noisy, you can just pick that car up and turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that too. Yeah, that is on the bottom of those. I'm gonna have to get that car out now, because I'm sure I ran it. I hope I did. I hope it's some of those things I brought home, thought was really cool, set on the shelf, and then forgot to get out of the box. But I will have to definitely take another look at those, because yes, I do remember when they first came out, and yeah, I remember now you say that little dial pot on the bottom to bring the sound up and down. So obviously, I played with it a little bit, but I need to refresh my memory on these cars. Yeah, they are very neat.
Definitely take a look. And the thing I like about the N-scale stuff, in the old days, we were pretty much limited to one type of track. But now we have available to us many different codes of track, and like Code 55 has become really popular because it looks more scale. And these cars with their metal wheel sets and body-mounted couplers, they work fine on Code 55, or your standard sectional 80 type track. So it's not a problem. They'll run on either types of track, and you'll have zero issues with them. So definitely, if you missed out on these the last time in N-scale and you're kind of regretting it, talk to your dealer, because whenever we do get these in stock, they don't last long. You don't see these on dealer shelves for very long. They usually do disappear quite quickly.
It is surprising. Boy, when the stuff comes out, you always think, well, I'll have a shot at that, or I'll take a look at it. And then I can't find the road name I was looking for, or it's like, oh, yeah, nope, I missed it. That the stuff really does come and go so fast now.
It does. And I mean, how many times have you been at a, let's say a train show? I know this has happened to me at Amherst. Amherst is a huge show out in Massachusetts, and I'll go to a dealer's table and there's something I'm looking for, and I'm like, I'm gonna check and make sure maybe it's a little cheaper over there. And when you come back, it's gone.
Gone.
I mean, that's happened to us all, hasn't it?
All the time. Yeah, I'm afraid it does.
One last thing, new stuff to share with everybody today, and it's N scale again. And these I'm pretty excited about. And if you're a modeler, N scale modeler of the 70s and 80s, I think you're going to like these as well. We're doing, these are just in the N scale this month. These are the N scale 50-foot box cars. And let me bring these up here. And boy, you know, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, these were everywhere.
Yeah. And lots of prime for grime there. So yeah, set and ready. Is that the 5277 cubic foot? Be the exterior post sliding door. I mean, these are part of that kind of, as you say, rail box era. The IPD, the incentive per diem cars that just exploded for a while there in the 70s, and then went on and had careers later. As you see, that one rail box has Santa Fe reporting marks. I think is that what they crashed rail box, and then the partners took back in stock basically their ownership part. So if Santa Fe was in that with Trailer Train, it's like, okay, well, it's gone bust, but we'll give you so many box cars as you're cashing out your chips. And I think that's where some of those come from. But this is a very common, as you say, from 70s onward to find these cars in trains. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing a lot of guys in all different scales, but even in N scale, we're seeing guys modeling the 70s all the way up into the 90s. And so we wanted to offer those guys like you were saying, the per diem. And the per diem era of railroading was really interesting because we kind of started to see these really cool paint schemes again. It was kind of like the last era of really flashy paint schemes. And I mean, I remember these rail box cars all over the place on the Northeast. And like you said, this one here, the rail box that we're showing, it's redone for Santa Fe. It's already pre-faded out. We're offering it in 3 different road names. And, you know, there's a lot of things that we put on our N-scale cars that a lot of other manufacturers don't do. I mean, we've got the all of that detail as far as, you know, take a look. I've kind of zoomed in a little bit, but I mean, look at how the reporting marks have just been painted over, and just like on the real thing, compare the rail box down here to the rail box up here. We get all that fading. That's exactly what they did too. They faded just like that.
And I've seen these from, and I think it was in scale because it was my assistant editor Shane was picking something of these up, and it amazed me how not just the yellow is faded, but if you notice in the red and blue arrows that those get faded too. So it's just a patched car and it's the same, it's like it's completely different when you set them side by side, as you can see from this illustration, how that blue goes a real light blue. The red almost gets like a pink, you know, tinge to it. That it's a real realistic look, because when you do see these cars, that's how they faded out and how they look.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when they were new, they kind of had that cheesy yellow orangey color to them, but as they faded, they just became like a really chalky construction yellow. Yeah, you know. Now the Canadian National, the wet noodle logo, we've got that from 1975. That was a as delivered car, so it's going to be it's not going to be prime for grime. But we went ahead and did some others here that you guys probably know and like. Here, how about First Coast Railroad? Former Golden Triangle Railroad. Yeah, it's not one that I know a lot about, but I'm sure our fans, there's somebody out there that models it or has a connection with it.
I think you know, those cars, they were general purpose cars, and that Golden Triangle is probably the original incentive per diem road, as some of them were. They're like, well, we really own about, you know, 20 feet of track, but we bought 50 box cars to get in on this deal of leasing box cars. So if they all came home, we've got no place to put them. But so we got to keep them out there making money. And a lot of these crashed and turned into different things. And I assume that's, First Coast would now own that car. And I see your rail boxes. What's the patching there? Is it a reway? I see the black beneath the R box reporting marks.
Oh, yeah, let's zoom in on that so everybody can see.
And it looks like it's a little less, like it's holding its colors better. So it's for grime, but not as faded.
Yeah, this one's still a rail box car, but it's had its a capacity and its weight limit and things of that nature redone. So what it was originally intended for has changed and has been updated. And I'm going to try to see if I can zoom in even further to see that date. I see a date underneath there. 7th of July of 1980. So all the reporting marks have changed and keeping up with the changes that were in effect at that time. So, and this is appropriate for a modeler in the 1980s. And yeah, in the 1980s, they were doing okay. They weren't too bad. They were a little faded.
Yeah.
In this case, it's not as much faded as it's had its reporting marks updated.
And those are nice because you end up with, like, if you model that era, you have a lot of these rail boxes and they kind of all blend together in a consist. So it's neat to have some of these little subtle patch things like that car to mix in with some newer ones, or ones that have not been, like with the Reway thing on them, that it gives some good variation without having to really do any work, that you get the difference in the cars and without it just being, well, it's the same car, 3 different road numbers, but I wanted to set in the consist. So this gives you a little variety.
It really does. And then, of course, we've got 2 different eras here. We've got 1990s, the Burlington Northern still doing their Cascade Green. This was like the last of the Cascade Green, because just 5 years later, they would become Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and at least the ownership would change a little bit. And then, showing the 1970s, we've got the Southern Railway. And I always like this, the green, it's subtle, but it gives a green light to innovations. I always like that paint scheme. It's a really
nice slogan. It was always sharp. Yeah, the Southern had a lot of home-built cars in their roster, but that serves the South and gives a green light to innovations. And then the green dot, the green board, I guess, or whatever inside the Southern name was a sharp look. And that was towards the end of Southern. If that's 1977, Norfolk Southern's 82. So that's got a late era Southern.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still common. I still actually see, not very common, but I will see a Southern Railway boxcar like this, one of the old per diem boxcars. Not in as good a shape as this illustration here, of course, but these are great. And, the N-Scale guys, they're a part of a lot of modular clubs. You've got N-Track, you got Fremo N, you've got T-Track. All of those modular clubs, these are perfect for that. They'll work with all of the brand name track that's out there. And, another one that's really good is we're starting to see more operations in N-Scale. That was kind of something that was a fantasy in the years ago, but now with the technology, the way that it's become, operators are doing more with N-Scale. In fact, one of our reviewers did a really cool switching layout in N-Scale using a lot of these cars. And so we've got the body mounted couplers, because if you're going to do operations, you're going to want that. You don't want the Talgo style trucks and couplers. And again, metal wheel sets. It works on all that different types of track we talked about.
I'd kind of forgotten how BN, they keep it all looks the same, but it's almost like, well, we ran out of the right scale decals, so we've got a set that's smaller. Because suddenly the BN shrunk down, the Burlington Northern's not as big. But yeah, that was their look for a period there, where it's like, it's the same, but it's just the wrong scale decals on the car.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, if you look at their early stuff, early Burlington Northern paint schemes, 70s into the 80s, they're very proud of that Burlington Northern logo. And so it's huge.
It'd fill that whole side of the car. Would be a giant
exactly.
BN, yeah.
And as it got older, it got smaller and smaller, and then one day it was gone. It was replaced by a circle and a cross for a short time. But so N-Scale guys, go ahead and check these out. These are going to be available for order, pre-order anyways, from your dealer until Friday. You've got Friday to get those. Now, I always say this every time, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, the old Fred Sanford. This is MSRP. Talk to your dealer. Your dealer is going to give you a better price than what is advertised here. This is a suggested manufacturer's retail price. So definitely get in on that. And I know, of course, my eyes have forced me to get into HO. So now I get in double trouble. Now I get N scale and HO stuff. So, Tony, earlier we were talking about Prime for Grime, and have you heard about our contest that we're doing?
I did. I saw the one video with the one guy went out on the West Coast where you talked
Jimmy, or James,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So how's that going? How's
we've got some guys out there. Yeah, they've got some guys out there that are working hard on it. I'm going to put the card back up so anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about can see what we're doing. James helped me put together a video and some pictures like you see here, and it's real simple. There's about 4 different box cars in the Prime for Grime series that you can order from your dealer and go home and take a picture of it before you start, and then go ahead and weather it up. And as I've told the guys here before, make it look like everybody at Athearn is going to need a tetanus shot for looking at your pictures. You want to see these things in their environment. And, we're running that until April 19th. And for anybody that doesn't know, I'm going to go ahead.
What are the cars? How do you know what cars? And are they HO and N, or how does it all, where do you get
this is kind of new for us. We're going to do this in HO for this time. And if you go to the Athearn-contest at horizonhobby.com, or just go to the Athearn homepage and select a slide that looks much like this, you'll see a Prime for Grime slide. Select that. You'll go to a page with all the details, or all the deets, as the young guys say it nowadays. And you have 4 different cars to choose from. Now, the reason why we have those 4 different cars is for a couple of reasons. One of which, we wanted everybody to start fresh. We didn't want somebody to, come over here, grab a box that they've had in their attic for a few years. We wanted them to start fresh. So we selected certain cars that had just come out into the distribution center, and it had time to go out to dealers. And that way it gives everybody equal footing to get a car and start from scratch. And we've got some comments. I haven't gotten any pictures yet, but I'm sure that's going to change, because there's been some guys here commenting that they're going to go ahead and start working on some Prime for Grime contest pictures.
And this is HO or HO and N?
This is just HO this time. But if we see how popular it is, if the guys really get on board with it, we'll probably do this in HO and N scale. So yeah.
So you said they have till April, and then once they're turned in, I guess, are you and James going to grade them or judge them or pick one, or how's that?
Yeah, it's good questions. What we're going to do is the Athearn team is going to get together. We're going to sit down and we're going to look at the pictures, and we want to see how they look in their environment, like what James has done here. He's got it spotted in an industry. We want to see how realistic they did. So obviously, we want to see how much weathering they did and what kind of techniques they did, but we wanted to emulate real life. And we're going to pick out 3 altogether. We're going to have 1 grand prize winner, and we're going to have 2 follow-up winners. Now, the follow-up winners will get a new freight car, and then the grand prize winner has a choice for getting one of 2 different Genesis locomotives and coming on board Train Tuesday and telling us how he did his weathering. Because I don't know about you, I could always learn how to do more weathering.
Again, as much as I like to collect stuff, I always enjoy finding out whether it's electronics or painting and decaling, weathering. It's fun to pursue that stuff, and it's like, oh, that is a neat idea, or I think I might be able to do that, or I'd like to try that. So yeah, that's always exciting and you always learn something. It's never everybody's going to do this the same way. I always end up catching something like, well, that's a neat idea, or I hadn't thought of trying to do that will help your hobby out. So always beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we get kind of in a rut. Sometimes we get in our layout room and we forget that in the real world, these cars don't stay clean forever. They're usually dirty the first day they're out on the rails. And so when we're in our own little bubble of our railroad room, everything is perfect. And then when we take it to it, and they're like, why are your freight cars shiny? Or why do they look like they never turned a revenue of service in their lives? This is a great excuse for you to not only do this contest car, but maybe while you get the stuff out, maybe experiment with some other cars and, make your layout that much more realistic.
It is a very neat thing, and that is through, you can find out the stuff by going to athearn.com and click on this image to find out what models are available to use. And they have, what, about a month? April 19th, did you say?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a little bit over a month. We started this a couple of weeks ago. It's April 19th is the last day to submit your pictures. And remember, when you buy these, you want to take a picture to be eligible. You have to have a picture taken before you start, and then a picture after it's all done. So remember that, because that's key. And yeah, we're getting some really good feedback on it. There's a lot of guys out there I know are busy on it. They haven't sent their pictures in yet, but I think we're going to be seeing some pictures here pretty soon.
That's a very neat thing. Yeah, as I said, I'd heard about it, and it was on my radar. But yeah, that's definitely something to pursue and look at, find out more about.
Now, I know you and I are going to be busy. We're not only going to be here on Train Tuesday, but we're going to be talking Dash 9s tomorrow night, right?
Indeed, we are, with our good buddy Ken Bianco Jr. from Train World in New York. We've got a live show tomorrow at, I think it's 5:30 Eastern. Yes, 5:30 Eastern, so 4:30 for you and I here in the Central Time Zone. And you're going to show off those. Of course, you might have seen it, and you can go to your channel, the Athearn channel, and look at that first look Friday that you did. But oh my gosh, that new run of Dash 9s, and this is what the first group, and then the next group that's been announced. I assume we're going to be talking on the second group of Dash 9s that's in this month's announcement. We're
going to be talking about those. I'll be showing pictures that Janik took of the ones from that we talked about last July. Those are coming in now. So now people will get to see what these Dash 9s are. And then, of course, I know you've got a lot of great pictures, especially of the FMG Dash 9. So, yeah, it's going to be a good time for anybody that's watching this, wants to see more of the Dash 9s, both prototype and the model. Check us out tomorrow night. It's 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's 4:30 Central. And, yeah, Tony, Ken, and I, we're going to talk Dash 9s. It should be a good time.
That's such a great prototype. When that second group, it's neat that first production group has hit, and you have those now, because when you announce these, I'm like, yeah, I'm really excited, but I still haven't really got to see the first ones yet. And then when all those came out, it's like, wow, those are pretty awesome. But yeah, that next group's got just as many neat road names as that first bunch. So there's a lot here to look at.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. A lot of folks hadn't seen that. And last Friday, I mean, this was stop the presses type of thing. Last Friday, Janik sent me an interoffice email saying, hey, I've got something here that I think our guys are going to want to see. And so we threw up a video real quick. In fact, let me go ahead, and for anybody that missed it on Friday, let me grab that video so you guys can see it. You can go over to our YouTube channel, and while you're over there, go ahead and give us a subscribe. And we're constantly adding content every week. Every Train Tuesday, of course, is archived over there. But let me bring up first. This was us on Friday talking about the new Dash 9s. And, I mean, the pictures are great. I mean, I'm kind of partial to that BNSF right there.
And
really nice.
Is that H1 or H2?
That is H1.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. So for anybody that missed that on Friday, this is archived over at our YouTube channel. You can take a look. We talked for about 30 minutes about these models, and Janik got some pretty good pictures. It's amazing what cell phones can do now. I had a comment. Don't you guys have professional photographers? Well, yeah, we do, but we wanted to show you the inside scoop. They just came in he said literally they just came in off the truck. So he wanted to run and get his cell phone, get some pictures of them and throw them up to us. And man, there's just some great detail in these. And if you're like me and like early BNSF, you're definitely going to want to take a look at these tomorrow night, 5:30 Eastern rather. And yeah, we're going to talk about Dash 9s tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it.
And that's what you mentioned a little while ago, on the Fred Sanford with all the retail price. Train World's one of those spots. When we look at this stuff, I know Ken Bianco will have links or, the Train World site to pre-order these. And again, you look around, you'll find discounts on the stuff, and Train World's one of those places that has a good price. Look at the GE Builders plate and such on that.
I know. That's what I was saying that day.
Oh, that is spectacular looking.
Yeah, I think I had that same pose. I can't do it now, but there we go. Yeah, I mean, the split rock. I was waiting for this actually. He's like pink walkways. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've got pictures to prove it. I just got to find those pictures. They're probably on Kodachrome.
I have some, and I'll have them for us tomorrow night to show that I've got some down.
There you go. Split rock.
Because it's a bubble gum pink color that you.
Yes,
again, you look at that and think that can't be right. And no, I'll have some pictures to share that. Yeah, they absolutely did.
Yep. So definitely take a look at that. I know, Tony, you're gonna have some great pictures. You always do because you share them with us, and it's gonna be a good time. I can't wait to see what you bring up, and then of course I'll have some of those pictures that Janet shared with me. And guys, keep watch. We're gonna keep showing even more detail. We're gonna use that professional photographer that somebody was asking about. He's chomping at the bit right now, wanting to get some really cool pictures of them. So be on the lookout for that. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. That should be a good time.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. And it amazes me. You mentioned before we went on today, the popularity of the Australian one. And that really is. And I think I've got to move my center flows here, but the new Railfanning Railroad has White River's Kevin Udaley. He does, and this was with John Benson and Mel Wilson, one of their trips down there. And I mean, it's so neat because it's GEs you recognize, but it's like it's a different world. I mean, when you look at the terrain, the little ore cars they're carrying, but this is the March 2021 Railfanning Railroad, and it's got an article in here on, among other things, the trips that he took down to Australia. And those, in fact, I think this one picture is one I shared with you that you've used, and I think I've used for Athens stuff of the Dash 9s. They're really awesome. Again, it's like it's the same we have here. Then you start looking and no, the handrails are different. And again, but wait a minute, look at those cars. What is that? And what's that terrain and stuff? It's such a neat deal. But it's fun because it is so much like our North American prototypes, and yet not.
Yeah, there's subtle differences, and we'll talk about them more tomorrow. But just subtle differences that they did for the Australian market versus the typical North American market. And we've had a lot of positive comments on the Australian units. So yeah, if you want to see more of those, we'll talk about those. And if you ordered from the first run of Dash 9s, we're going to be sharing pictures of those actual locomotives. They'll be here pretty soon. It doesn't seem like summer's around the corner.
Yeah, what's the ETA on them now? If you've got were those deco samples or early production? What was it?
Those were early. Yeah, those were early production. We're probably going to see those come in about July, so not too long now.
Before you know it, yeah.
Perfect timing. Yeah, I mean it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it. I remember having a lot of fun photographing those Dash 9s here in Illinois. Now, something else I wanted to talk about, and I think you've got one now. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. The SD60Ms, the Triclops.
I do not.
Oh.
I do not have one. No. In fact, I don't know that and I was at the hobby shop Saturday doing some, and I don't know that I must have walked past them. No, I think the ES Gevos is the last new Athearn diesel I remember working with. But yeah, the Triclops 60Ms are out, aren't they?
That is true. They have been out for just a little bit. And before we go further, I did see a question from Michael. I want to grab it real quick, because I don't want to forget it. He has two questions about the CP SD70 ACUs that were introduced back in November. Wants to know if they're going to have the same sugar cube speakers as the SD60M, and will the SD70 ACUs have lit number boards? Okay, so anything that's Genesis 2.0, Michael is going to have lit number boards. They'll also have ground lights, and in some cases, if it's a Canadian model, some type of marker light or status light type of deal. Or in the case of the Dash 9s, we're doing some rock lights as well. As far as the exact same speakers, they are a dual sugar cube speaker. I don't know if they're the exact same ones that we're using in ST60M, but I can tell you they are dual sugar cube. Now, going back to the SD60M, and thank you, Michael, for that question. I just didn't want to lose him in the mix. James, the same guy that helped us with the Prime for Grime contest, he just picked up a SD60M, and he's got a really cool channel. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's called Hybrid Hobby.
I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah, he's got a great little channel over there. He started doing some reviews for us, and I'm going to go ahead and play his video so you guys get a kind of a preview of it. Let's make that a little bit bigger because he does a really nice job on his reviews. Last week, we talked about Derek at DG Model Works. He did the Norfolk Southern version because he's a Norfolk Southern fan. And so we had James do the Union Pacific. He's out there on the West Coast where it's nice and sunny and there's palm trees and all that good stuff. He's a Union Pacific fan. So we had him take a look at this. And his review is going to be cross-posted on our Facebook page later tonight. So if you forget to check out his channel, we'll give you a little reminder on our Facebook page. But he's Hybrid Hobbies over at YouTube. Go ahead and check out this review. And it's always neat to see the different, it may be the same unit, but both James and Derek show the differences between the Norfolk Southern and, in this case, the Union Pacific.
Well, it looks like spectacular. I see the extra knuckles hanging there on the pilot. I saw the chain on the one truck. Yeah, it just looks great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful locomotive. It runs good. It sounds good.
I mean, look at the piping and the conduit there above the lead truck. It seemed like at some point EMD, kind of that skirting or frame line started to, it seemed like maybe the F40PH was one of the first ones I really remember that it's kind of like there was less and less of that covered, and models just, they have to have that. Otherwise you look through it and it's just plain. And man, look at all that detail around the trucks and everything. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, and the biggest thing too, from the first release that we did, that middle window was off. It wasn't quite right. And we had a lot of our fans tell us, hey, something's not right. So the Athearn development guys, they sharpened their pencils and they got the drawings out and they checked things and they rechecked things and we made it right. This has got the right proportion size window. It is to scale. And I know Derek over at DG basically said, hey, here it is. These guys did it. So we do listen. We want to hear your feedback, good and bad, because at the end of the day, we want to make good models for you that you're going to be proud to own. And this Union Pacific locomotive just looks absolutely stunning in its armor yellow and harbor mist gray.
Boy, it is nice. Yeah, that is a classic looking unit.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, we'll do something, Tony, if you want to stick around for a little bit. We'll do something that we always do at the end of a Train Tuesday. We do some virtual rail fanning, and we take some questions. You up for a few questions?
Oh, yeah. Where we're going to head rail fanning today?
Well, I was going to go your way, but it looked like it was going to start storming any minute. So I'm going to go.
I'm hitting this today. Yeah, I wouldn't guarantee. Yeah, it's been. The day's not coming around.
I'm going to take a gamble. It was nice earlier and it was kind of busy, but I don't think we've been here on Train Tuesday before. But let's go to Elkhart, Indiana. And some interesting eye candy in the background.
Yeah, look at all that stuff. Oh, there's a train right there.
Yeah, hopefully that screen blows up here pretty soon. There we go. Yeah, it was a little bit bluer sky earlier. But pretty much everything else in the Midwest is kind of rainy and windy right now. So we'll see how Elkhart treats us while we take some questions.
And see, like right here, look at the crane back there. This reminds me of like that 40-foot gondola, and we were talking about having it like in a work train or something. Look at that equipment over there in the weeds. is kind of the typical place you could put like that 40-foot roundhouse gondola in with like that
Yeah.
crane, kind of that boom car there. That's that typical maintenance thing.
Yeah. And we got some Norfolk Southern action showing up. And while he's doing that, yeah, look at that old tank car. That thing is ancient. Oh, great. So here's a the chance that you can ask a question to myself or to Tony or to both of us, whatever you like. We've got a few minutes, and we'll be more than happy to answer some questions. Tony's got a wealth of information, especially on some of the older stuff too. So if you've got some questions about the Roundhouse equipment, go ahead and throw them up there. I'm going to take a look here and see what we've got.
Look at that green center flow there, Jim, next to that open coil car. And
yeah.
Penn Central? Is that Penn Central marked out, I think?
I'm going to check. I'll see if I get to a bigger screen on my end.
No, maybe not. But again,
that is
well, and see,
in Cobarosa.
It's a 3-bay, and it's probably something newer. But again, as we were saying, how those roundhouse cars are adaptable. You saw that, weathered car like that would be, where you could take and put that into a consist. So it's amazing the stuff, you'll catch in some of these trains. And like that right there was in the neighborhood of that car. Look at the old Northwestern hoppers.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. Michael Long's got a good question for us. CP to buy Kansas City Southern. What do you think?
I don't know, and I don't know what. I guess the thing that concerns me the most is what would it mean to, like, I don't know that just one of the dominoes like that would fall without other, pieces on the board moving around. So I don't know. I mean, there's always that talk of more consolidation, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting. It's like you said earlier, does it mean there's going to be other mergers? I know on my end of the world, the big deal is Pan Am slowly going underway of CSX and Geneseo and Wyoming short line. So you've got that going on the East Coast, and now in the middle straight in the middle of North America, you've got the CP Kansas City Southern thing going on. So it's almost like you said earlier, you're kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop.
What would suddenly come out next if that did go through? Like, would we see more? Boy, there's some good weathering. Whoever did that Northwestern, there's an RPM meet car for you.
That is definitely the case. Definitely. Let's see, Alex, I see your question, so I'm going to throw it up there. Will future 2.0 Genesis 2.0 packaging have some indication of being 2.0? The SD60Ms came in the standard Genesis box. Not a big issue, just found it interesting. Yeah, to answer your question, we're always looking for ways to update things like that. That might have been where just where the production of the boxes fell. They didn't have time to put the 2.0 nomenclature on it. But it's something that we're also looking into. There's been a lot of changes, good changes going on here at Athearn, and we're looking at our packaging. We're looking at how things are put into the packaging so that the locomotives show up nice and safe at your doorstep. But good comment, good question. And yeah, in the future, we'll probably see some changes to that, make it a little bit easier for you.
That is a good question. I remember looking a couple of times at those, the legendary livery ES44s, and trying to decide were they 2.0, and again was looking at the box and packaging. So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question, and it's something that we're always working on. So good question indeed. And I saw another question here. And Michael, by the way, you're welcome. We thank you for your order of your units. I'm looking forward to those ACUs. I'm wearing the CP shirt right now. I did see a question earlier, somebody asking about these shirts. I'm in the process right now of getting these so that you can buy them. It's going to take a little bit, but trust me, they'll be available for sale probably just before your pre-orders come in. So let's see. got a few guys here saying that they ordered the SD60Ms and they're on their way, so that's good to hear. I know we sold out here rather quickly, so I might not be able to get my Cascade Green one that I wanted. Oh, let's see. More questions on the merger. And will we do any Kansas City Southern stuff? Oh, I'm sure we will. When, I don't know. But
I think so far on the merger thing too, I've not heard any. I don't know if I saw a name yet. I forget what I saw. Did I see Canadian Pacific Kansas City listed somewhere, which seemed odd that they would just keep the city in the name, but I don't know.
Jeff's saying CP Southern.
Maybe so.
I don't know. I plan on having chicken and waffles tonight with maple syrup. I mean, that sounds like a good merger.
Oh,
let's see. Let me see what else we've got here. Somebody had a question on a new Genesis locomotive, so I want to see what it is. Oh, okay. Andrew had a question. Andrew says he's looking forward to the Dash 9 and the P42 locomotives in HO scale. Can you guys do a Santa Fe SD45-2B in Genesis 2.0? Well, that's a great suggestion, and one that you need to use our email address over. That is the product suggestion email over at athearn.com. So go to the Contact Us page and athearn.com and look for that product suggestion email. Put basically what you wrote to us in there and send it in, and it'll get collated after a while. And it's like after a while we get a nice stack of those. It's like, guys, I think we found the next project we're going to work on. And,
it does work. It does work. I hear that from a lot of manufacturers that it's like we get asked and asked and asked about this. So never think that, they've got their own agenda and they don't pay any attention. That now I've heard from multiple companies over the years that always say that, well, we made this because we had this stack of letters, or we kept getting told there was not a good version of this, or why didn't anybody ever make this variant of that unit? So no, it does. It hits home.
Yeah, I mean, we basically put that email up for that reason, because we wanted to hear from our audience what they wanted. We used to joke that if it was up to us, it would all be Southern Pacific with Boston and Maine and Union Pacific or something. So, we want to do more than just a few railroads. We want to do what you guys want. And really, Tony, it's been a huge help, because there have been some roads that, should we do this short line? And then we find out that they sell really well. There's a hardcore audience for that. So if we were just in our own bubble, we wouldn't know unless we hear from our friends out there.
No, that kind of feedback, whether like you've got a dedicated email for it now, or like your Facebook page, and it's the same thing, with the magazine stuff. I don't know how many things get on my radar because somebody said, I've heard this is coming out, or I heard about this. What is it like? Can you tell me? I want to know more. And again, it might be something that I wasn't aware of or hadn't given really any thought to. It's like, well, let's take a look at this, or let's get one and review it and see. So again, that kind of stuff, definitely, give that feedback and, talk about things you like or want to see more of.
Got a good question here from KC. He wants to know, hey, do the SD60Ms, do they have flashing ditch lights? Okay, so this is per the prototype, and there's three different variables here technically. One is, the short answer is yes. If you look at after this show, if you get a chance, go over to DG, that's Derek G Model Works, and look up his review on the SD60M. And since it's a Norfolk Southern prototype, it has the flashing ditch lights. Now, if you get the Union Pacific version, it does not have flashing ditch lights. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the third one? Well, the Burlington Northern ones, and Tony probably knows where I'm going with this because he probably saw these back in the day. Burlington Northern, they had ditch lights, but they didn't have the alternating or oscillating ditch lights. They actually had a strobe. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That was
Very unique, yeah.
late 80s, early 90s. They had a strobe, and we've simulated that with the Burlington Northern
Oh, cool.
versions, not the BNSF, just the BN version. So, yeah, depending on the prototype, they will have flashing ditch lights. Let's see. Is that a museum in the background? Yes, it is. It really is. So here's a personal question for both of us from Richard. I'll put it up here on the screen so we can read it. For Jim and Tony, what former Roundhouse N-scale car would you like to see rerun by Athearn?
You know, Roundhouse did more in scale than you might initially think.
That's right.
Because for the long history, you think of them as being, mostly an HO, but they even had G scale that was sold off.
That's true. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot there. I'd have to look through some of the stuff. I know I'm always surprised because again, that Roundhouse in scale tends to be more modern. And when I do see them at shows or pick them up for my collection, I'm always amazed how much better the new Athearn cars are, because I don't think of those Roundhouse cars as being that old, and they were fully assembled. So again, it's like, well, it's the same car, and then I'll see they have like Talgo Rapido couplers, or the trucks or plastic wheels. Some, it's like, wow, I would have thought this was the exact same car that's out now, and this is quite a bit different. That's a good question. Yeah, I'd have to think about in Roundhouse.
Yeah. I mean, we remember, a lot of us, I'm assuming he does as well since he asked the question, but the old model die casting N scale kits, and I still have a few of those because back in the day, those were really nice models. I still have it. It's a Main Central and Harvest Gold 50-foot FMC, and you put it together as a kit. And when I was getting into it, body mounted couplers weren't even a thing yet, but some of us were taking those MDC kits and making them body mounted couplers and lowering the truck ride height and things of that nature. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the easy answer for me would be maybe seeing another Main Central Harvest Gold boxcar. Well, I think we got time for maybe one or two more questions, and then we'll pull the pin on this episode. Well, I'm looking for questions. Tony, what are you working on besides hanging out with me tomorrow night?
I tore up my test layout that's over here to my left. And over the weekend, we were at the hobby shop, and my assistant editor, Shane Mason, and I got to looking at some of the elevated curved track, and I bought to replace I've got Unitrack from Cato that I used to test on that Code 83. I bought the elevated with concrete ties 28 radius. So I've tore out which I've got in scale, a couple of different kinds of HO with different turnouts. Everything's off the board, and I'm doing a couple of new wider sheets of foam to get a new 28-inch radius sweep around with elevated curves onto my test loop. So actually working on that a little bit this week. But that's been my main project, and we're already moving towards working on June and July editions of the magazine. So yeah, very neat. I'm working on like 4th of July type bicentennial things, in my head of what we can work into that issue. So always a couple of jumps ahead.
Yeah, that's the way it is. I know we're actually getting ready to do shows again, which I'm really happy about, because it's fun to do these shows like this and talk to everybody. But, you and I both know it's so much easier when it's in person, and especially if somebody comes to your booth and shows their latest project, or you get a chance to sneak away from the booth for a little bit and see the layouts and the projects and things like that. So we are going to be at the Spring Creek Open House in July. That's up in Deschler, Nebraska. And then we're also going to be at the St. Louis RPM prototype meet this July as well. So, I've got some projects in the works as well. So hopefully both of us will get to see some of you out there in person, see what you guys are working on.
Yeah, I have plans for both those shows as well. We actually, Model Road News will have a table at the St. Louis RPM, and I've been to the. I think they do the Zuckers do that show in Deschler like every other July. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
been so far, and yeah, I was at the last one, and that's an awesome. If you've never been up to Spring
Oh,
Creek, that's a great weekend to go because there's a show going on at the little like town center south of the hobby shop, and plus seeing the hobby shop's amazing. So, and that's when is that? Is that early July?
that is in late July. I believe it's
Late July.
July 23rd, somewhere in that
Oh, so
neighborhood.
it's in the neighborhood
So, yeah,
of the because St. Louis's RPM is that last couple days of July, 30, 31st or 29th, 30th or something like that is a St. Louis RPM.
that's right. Yeah, I think it's back-to-back weekends, and
Wow.
there's going to be a lot of train stuff going on. So let's see. Yeah, we just got confirmation July 24th and 25th. So I'm for one am looking forward to getting outside the studio a little bit and actually talking to people. So now I just saw a question. It looked like it was directed towards you, Tony. It's from Kyle. He wants to know, does 28-foot radius curve work with cars like auto racks? Well,
Oh, yeah, 28 foot would be spectacular.
yeah, it would.
If I said, did I say foot? 28 inch
28
radius
inch.
is what? Yeah, 28 foot would be spectacular. It'd take, I don't know, my yard's that big.
Yeah. I mean,
I
that
think
would be
anything, I think anything 24 and wider, you can get away with body mounted, on long flat cars, auto racks, high cubes, superliners, things like that. So.
Yep.
And 24 is what I had prior, and really this move to 28 was just to pick up the elevated curves because I thought that was kind of cool. Oh, what's in this consist up here? CNS, but are those CN units behind it maybe?
Yeah, let's see. Apparently we had a good choice. I see some CN in there.
Yeah.
Looks like. I don't think this is too far from me, so I guess I'm going to have to jump in the old railfan Jeep and head out there sometime. This is kind of cool. I usually haunt more of Illinois and Indiana southern than I do this part of the world. Yeah, I think we got two. Pretty cool.
Very neat. And that second unit's not a wide cab. That's
No, it's not.
maybe -8-ish.
F8, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very cool.
All right. Let me see if we've got one more that I can take, and then we're gonna pull the pin. Let's see what else we've got here. A lot of good suggestions on stuff. Guys have suggestions on anything, you know what I'll say. Use that product suggestion email. Oh, let's see. Some requests on switchers. Yeah, we hear the requests on switchers. We've got some stuff coming up that I think everybody's going to enjoy. So, all right. Well, anybody that has, somebody's looking for a GP38-2 in Ontario, Northland. Great suggestion. Where do they go, Tony?
Go to the Athearn page, the contact us, and look for there's a direct link that you can put in those requests, and it gets to the right people. And I think that Ontario Northland, that is a nice scheme. Is that deep blue?
Cool.
Yeah, and the zigzag type logo they had. Yeah, that would be a neat looking unit. Yeah. And so tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central, we'll be back on Facebook and YouTube with Ken Bianco Jr. from Train World and talking about the -9s. So make sure you stop by and see us for that, because there'll be lots of pictures and lots of info on those. Yeah,
Ken does a great job too. He can catch the questions a little bit faster than I can. So if you've got questions, he'll be sure to bird dog them and get them to Tony or I, and we can talk about them. But it's usually a good time. I like going over there to. It's the closest thing that I've got right now, anyways, of going to New York. So that'll have to do until everything fully opens up. But and also too, don't forget, you have until the 26th, that's this Friday, to place your orders on anything that we've talked about today and in the previous Train Tuesdays, and of course what we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. And then I'm going to be back after tomorrow night. I'm going to be back again in the studio Friday at 3:30 Central, because it's already time for, we're going to be talking about April new announcements.
Indeed you are. Yes, I've been looking up pictures on some of those. So yeah, you've got some very neat things you're going to talk about later this week. Yeah.
There's some cool stuff coming up. Yep. So definitely stay tuned.
And be careful, because when Ken and I are together on these shows, I can usually weasel some secrets out of some of these people that we, yeah. So just be aware that, yes, Ken's firing those questions up from folks and everything else, that I'm kind of right there angling in. So don't flip up and give away any trade secrets. But yeah, it gets a little rough sometimes on the guests. Yeah.
You never know. You never know what's going to happen. So tune in for that. And tune in again, like I said, Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, with all the new stuff. Tony already knows maybe a little bit, but he's gonna keep it a secret to you, all you guys. But I guarantee you that you guys are going to be happy with this next release of stuff. So there you go. It's been, I just saw a comment. Holy cow! It's been 2 hours. We had a lot of information today. There was a lot of stuff to go over, and we had a lot of people join us on board. So Tony and I want to thank you guys for sticking out and talking to us about stuff. Get to those pre-orders before time runs out. And Tony, I think it's safe to say that you and I will probably see a lot of these guys tomorrow night, right?
I would say so. Yeah, definitely. Check out modelrailroadnews.com, and you can find that review that I did on the center flow is under product reviews, and we post news there all the time. So check us out, and remember the Prime for Grime contest over at Jim there on the Athearn site. So 2 big things.
Well, Tony, I'll let you sign off first, and then we'll call this show done.
Well, then I'm going to steal your sign off thing. I'm going to say hi greens, everybody.
All right. Hi greens, everybody. Stay safe.